Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the Vibrant Health Podcast, hosted by myself, Jessica Espinoza, and my friend and colleague, Lydia Shatney. I am a wellness coach and educator whose main goal is to help inspire you to live your most vibrant life. You can find me writing about all things health and wellness over at deliciousobsessions.com and jessicaespinoza.com. Lydia is a nutritional therapist and founder of the Divine Health from the InsideOut.com website, where she works with clients all over the country and helps them improve and regain their health using nutritional and mineral balancing protocols. We are so excited that you're taking time out of your day to tune in. But before we get started, since this is a health-related podcast, it should be noted that we are not licensed medical professionals. The information and advice provided in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or prescribe for any illness or health issue and should not be construed as medical advice. You should always consult with your medical practitioner before making any changes to your diet, supplementation, medication, or lifestyle. Now, on to today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get this show started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 38 of the Vibrant Health Podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. I am here today with my co-host, Lydia, and we are super excited to have a special guest on the show today to talk about one of our favorite fermented beverages. So, hey, Lydia, do you want to say hello and introduce our guest?
Hey, Jessica. Yes, I totally do. I am pretty psyched about today. I'm glad everyone's here tuning in with us, and we're going to welcome Hannah Crum. She's also known as the Kombucha Mamma, and she's here to talk about one of our favorites, kombucha. I had the pleasure of meeting Hannah back in March at the Nutritional Therapy Conference, and I felt like I already knew her because I've been kind of following along with her kombucha journey since, goodness, I think it's back in like maybe 2007. Is that possible, Hannah?
Totally possible. That's when I started blogging.
Yeah. I remember her videos in the kitchen of her home, like teaching people how to brew kombucha. Anyway, so you may know her from that very same thing or her site, kombuchakamp.com. And she's pretty much the number one guru when it comes to brewing kombucha at home, and she always has answers for your questions. So she's the woman. And she just recently published an amazing new book called The Big Book of Kombucha. It's an absolutely stunningly gorgeous book with lots of awesome recipes and ideas and information about kombucha. So if you haven't snagged a copy, we definitely recommend it. And we're going to look forward to talking a bit more about kombucha today with Hannah and get some questions answered and some history and some cool stuff. So welcome, Hannah. We're really happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's terrific to be connecting with you guys, and glad we've all been in this space for a while now, so it's fun to see how we've all evolved together.
Yeah, true.
Yep,
very true.
Absolutely. It's been a very fun journey.
Yeah, totally. It's cool to you're right, it's cool to kind of see what everybody's doing. Like I said, I remember seeing your videos way back in the day. You know, you had people come to your house and you'd have like kombucha parties and stuff. And so today we want to introduce the topic, although we're going to assume many of our readers are already familiar with kombucha, but there may be some who are not. So if you want to kind of introduce kombucha and kind of how to get started with it, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. So kombucha is essentially fermented tea. Just like milk is fermented into all kinds of awesome things, yogurt, kefir, cheese, and things like that, healthy bacteria are inoculated into the sweet tea solution, and over time it turns it into this healthy, delicious, naturally effervescent probiotic beverage. Our culture is not just the glop of the stuff that came before, although the starter liquid is important. It has its own name. It's called a SCOBY, and that's an acronym for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. Pretty straightforward. Basically, the bacteria that ferment kombucha are similar to those that make vinegar. They're acetic acid bacteria. They're usually gluconacidobacter. And what's interesting about these bacteria is that they will excrete cellulose fibers from their cell walls. Those fibers then grow together and they create this pellicle or this pancake-like thing, and that's the kind of body of the SCOBY, so to speak. And then the yeast are these brown globs. Sometimes they're greenish, sometimes they're blackish, but they depend from the culture, meaning they hang from it. They also are woven inside of the bacterial cellulose, and then it becomes this mothership, so to speak, that we take from batch to batch of sweet tea, and it turns it into kombucha. So most people will start out with a gallon batch. We have a pretty straightforward recipe. This recipe comes from many years of reading research papers and every book and information and resource I could find on kombucha. Basically, it's 4 to 6 tea bags or teaspoons of loose leaf tea per gallon. We boil that, or we steep it in 4 cups of water. So we do a shortcut method, and that's because the yeast are temperature sensitive. Anyone out there who's baked bread knows that you don't want the water too hot, also don't want it too cold, and so the same is true with our SCOBYs. They really love 75 to 85, with 80 being the sweet spot. So instead of boiling a whole gallon of water and then waiting for it to cool, we just do 4 cups. We steep our tea in that. After about 15 minutes or so, we take those tea bags out or strain out the loose leaf tea, and then we add 1 cup of sugar. We stir that in. It's nice and hot. It dissolves quickly. And yes, that sounds like a lot of sugar, especially these days as folks are very sugar conscious. But the reality is the resulting beverage is not sweet, or it's more sweet and sour. So the sugar is not for you. It's for the culture. Once it's dissolved in the liquid, we then pour in the cold water, and that is going to bring the temperature down quickly. We then float that culture in with at least 1 cup of starter liquid per gallon. And that starter liquid is really important because kombucha is a low pH, right? We all know vinegar is quite acidic. And kombucha is what we would call a tea vinegar, but it's not as strong as a standard vinegar, which is why we can drink kombucha all day long, whereas we might only be able to do a thimbleful of our apple cider vinegar. But once we pour that starter liquid in, it starts to drop the pH of the liquid. That's the antimicrobial. It protects it from other mold or other things from getting in there. And like I said, after about a week or so, depending on your taste preference, your kombucha is ready to drink.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
That was like the most succinct.
I know. It was beautiful. Good job.
Yeah, I've done this before, you think?
I know.
Just a few times.
I said that same thing just a couple of times before.
Yeah, it's cool though because it's really, once you do it, it's a simple procedure, and it can be repeated and save you a ton of money because, as many people may already know, if you're health conscious, kombucha is really trending big time. I mean, it has been, but it's getting even more popular, and you can find it in your local health food store or even grocery stores now, right? So, and you can try a bunch of varieties, and that's a great way to get started, of course. But you can save a ton of money if you make your own. So it's cool to hear the summary of how to do it.
A lot of people will start by buying it at the store because maybe they've never heard of it, or it's totally new, or they just saw this cool-looking bottle at their store, and so they grab it and they try it. And, you know, it's one of these things, as you ladies know, today we're mostly consuming foods that are processed or, you know, denatured in some way or another, and so the body's not used to getting nutrition in a living form like our ancestors did. And so people get this almost instantaneous, palpable feeling of, you know, I want to call it kombucha buzz, but it's really these B vitamins in a living form. It helps with digestion. It increases energy. And they just get this lift from drinking the kombucha. And they quickly find that they want to be grabbing one every day or drinking a couple a day. And, you know, it's a craft product. And so it doesn't have the same low price point as, say, a soda. And quickly your taste will outgrow your budget. And that's where making it at home really comes in to save the day, because it can become a low-cost substitute for sodas, juices, coffee, you know, anything that you want to substitute. Kombucha, you can flavor it in so many different ways. It can come in and be your favorite new beverage.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I find, too, like a lot of times people will get started with kombucha and maybe their body's not used to the bacteria and probiotics in there, and they may need to go a little slower when they get started with it if they're just not used to that kind of food at all.
Absolutely, and some people, they make kombucha face. Hey, tell me about the first time you guys tried kombucha. What was it? Did you love it at first sip, or was it something you had to get used to?
Exactly. It's a good point. I just knew it was like awesome because I had done my research and I was determined to like it. And the first time I got it was GT's because that was all you could get. And I kind of thought it was a little vinegary, and I wasn't so excited about it. But I was like, no, I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to warm up to it. It's kind of the same thing with liver. When I found out liver was good for me, I made myself figure out how to like it. You know what I mean? And same thing with kombucha. And the first time I was like, I'm not loving this, But I kept trying. And then I just kind of got I don't want to say addicted to it, but I got, I enjoyed it, the way it made me feel. And the taste just kind of warmed me over time as I got used to it. And because it's a sour taste, too, and we're not used to that in our culture. Anyway, so yeah, that was my first experience. I didn't spit it out or give up on it or anything like that. I've heard people say that before. But yeah, now I'm like, oh, I love it.
Yeah, mine
totally. How about you, Jess?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same as Lydia's. I knew that it was good for you, but yeah, that first taste, it was more vinegary than I had expected, and I've always kind of been a fan of the tart, sour flavors. So, but it did take me a little while to warm up to it. And even now, I'm not one of those people that can just sit down and enjoy a whole bottle. I drink a very small amount when I have it, maybe 4 ounces, 8 ounces at the most, because that's just all my body wants. It's very strong and potent to me. So I just drink a little bit here and there. And that's actually been kind of a change, because when I after I had the initial kind of shock from what it tasted like, and then it started growing on me, I did become kind of hooked on it. And so I could sit down and, drink a bottle of it or have a big glass of it or something. But it's funny because over the last 3 years, my tastes have kind of changed. And so now I need a very small amount of it. I still enjoy it, but yeah, I can't drink a whole bottle anymore. So it's interesting to see how my own personal tastes have kind of evolved along with it, but I still love it. And there's so many things that you can do with it. Like you said, different flavors and everything that, if you taste it initially just a plain version, then try some of the flavored versions, and different brands taste different. So, really finding the ones that kind of suit your taste buds can be key.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about both of your experiences is that you're talking about what we say, which is trust your gut. Don't drink how much I drink. Don't drink how much Jess or Lydia drinks. Drink what makes sense for your specific body. And I think, medicine is kind of moving in this direction anyways, realizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. There's no one pill that helps everybody, and we have to start really getting back in touch with our bodies and reconnecting to the biofeedback signals that our bodies give us on a regular basis. And, unfortunately, our culture has not really paid attention to focusing on those things and educating each other on those things. We have to look at our process of elimination, because it's going to tell us a lot about what's going on internally. We need to look at when we consume certain types of foods, do we have reactions to them? And if so, is that good, bad, or otherwise? And I think it's really exciting, this whole intersection of the human microbiome research, along with the fermented foods coming back into play and the traditional foods like liver and things, to see, our ancestors instinctually understood that there were a lot of really great different things out there to consume. And we've kind of, in our processed food revolution, been forced down into eating corn and soy, or animal-fed corn and soy. And I think, evolutionarily, that's not what we're designed to do. And this is where we see a host of food allergies and all kinds of things happening. And what kombucha does is it reconnects you to feeling your guts again. And so having that small amount first thing in the morning allows your body to just feel, how is this working for me? And you may be someone like Jess who only wants a small amount, like a tonic here and there, which is a great way to consume it, especially if you're new to it. Whereas other folks, my husband, he drinks 32 ounces a day. This is his jam. He's kombucha powered. He loves this stuff. And I'll drink anywhere from 0 to 16 ounces. So some days I don't have any kombucha at all. I definitely notice if I haven't had it for a few days, but there's no one rule about, how much should you drink or when should you drink it. It's like any other food. Your body's going to say, you know what, I've had enough of that. And then you just move on. Or your body says, I'm lacking nutrition. When I first started drinking raw milk, my body was like, yes. And I just drank so much of it. I couldn't get enough. And then now I'm to the point where I don't really drink as much milk anymore. And so it's, again, listening to your body and allowing your body to guide you to the choices that make the most sense.
I love it. Yep. I love that you brought that up, because we're so about, helping people understand how to trust their innate intelligence and really listen to their body and get in tune. Because I think culturally speaking, we're very out of tune. And so I like how you kind of wove that in there. And it's really true. I tend to crave it more in the summer. I mean, I can guzzle it in the summer. In the winter, for some reason, I'm not. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll have some here and there. So that's just how I tend to roll. But it's cool to point that out so people are, thinking that way and not just like, oh, I have to have it. It's healthy for me. Yeah, listen to your body for sure.
Well, and your consumption pattern kind of mirrors kombucha and how quickly it ferments. Because it is temperature sensitive, a lot of people find it's hard to make kombucha in the winter unless they have, some kind of heating element or something like that, because it is nature, just like we're nature, just like there are cycles in nature. Itself, it will sort of hibernate or slow down or won't produce as quickly. And so in the summer, of course, we need more nutrients. We're sweating a lot more. So getting the kombucha with all that nutrition is really, it makes sense why then you would want to guzzle it.
True. Very good point. Yep. Well, let's talk a little bit about the trending, of kombucha, maybe even a little bit of a quick history and where people can find it. And, you've been traveling all over the country for your book tour, so you've got a good feel for the status of kombucha nationwide. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you recall, but in 2014, Alex and I also co-founded Kombucha Brewers International. So that's the trade association representing commercial kombucha around the world. Just to give you a quick show of numbers by how quickly this is growing, we started that in 2014 with 40 companies. It's 2016, halfway through, and we're over 130 companies around the world. So it is taking off everywhere. And every culture is starting to re-embrace it. And, even just I saw an alert that someone in India is making kombucha. And, we used to make this all the time. I'm like, really? I haven't found any info about kombucha in India. So it's exciting to see how it's revitalizing. And it's also interesting to see that it's been around for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And, in the book, we go very in-depth. We have a whole timeline. The reality is we haven't found any concrete evidence of it being 2,000 years old or things like that. But, we also over time have learned many things about, who we are and where we've come from as a planet. We may never totally know the answer to all those questions, but it is a tea-based ferment, so we assume it comes from Asia. Fermentation has been with humans since the dawn of time. Presumably it got very popular, was traded throughout on the trade routes, and then was in great popularity in Russia in the turn of the 20th century is where we really start to see some concrete research and information. In 1913, a female Russian scientist was studying kombucha. She took samples from all over Russia, which means that it had to have been present in the country before then for her to be studying it as a health beverage and a cultural phenomenon. And then, kind of spread throughout. But when the world wars came along with that came rationing. And so tea and sugar, which are our primary ingredients, those would be reduced, and so the habit of brewing kombucha would fall out of fashion. But it has certainly created a new upsurge. It started, I think, emerging in the U.S. in the 80s, as old of a reference as I can find. And then in 1995, GT, which is the national commercial brand and the founder of the commercial industry, he witnessed his mother struggle with cancer. And she did go through traditional chemotherapy, but she drank kombucha the whole way through, and she really felt that it supported her healing process. And in witnessing this as a young boy, teenager, he was so inspired by how it helped his mother that he decided to put it in a bottle. And so here we are 21 years hence, and it's turned into really the 21st century yogurt is how I think about it. I mean, remember when yogurt was something that, like, old people in the mountains lived to 100, they eat this stuff called yogurt, and then people were making it on their countertops, like, the hippies, they do all the cool stuff first, same with the kombucha, and then it became this multi-billion-dollar industry, and probiotics is a word that everybody knows, and, it's really kind of transformed the whole shape. Everyone's got yogurt. Everyone's eaten yogurt or tried yogurt. And I think that kombucha is following that same trajectory, and with the internet, it just makes it so much faster to get the word out there. So it's really spreading like wildfire right now.
So cool. So cool. Yep. I'm excited that there's more to try. When I first started with kombucha, the only kind I could get was GTs. I think they've since changed their formulation. Is that correct?
Well, they have two lines. This is one of those tricky things. All fermented foods, I'm just going to address it head on, is alcohol, right? So we live in a prohibition, we're kind of in a prohibition hangover era still. We have, America's very black and white in how it talks about things or classifies things. So, alcohol is demonized and alcohol is considered something that is like a controlled substance. And we've kind of lost touch with really the cultural reason for why alcohol exists, and that's as medicine. It's always been something we infused herbs in. It extracted nutritional value from those herbs that we couldn't just get by boiling them. We then would consume it in small quantities, and it would not only relax our organism, but provide this great nutritional boost. And in terms of preservation, alcohol is antimicrobial. And so all fermented foods, yes, your sauerkraut, your kefir, anything, is going to create trace amounts of it to act as a protective barrier. The problem with the kombucha in 10 was that it can sometimes create more alcohol than what the current legal threshold for taxation allows. It's still not inebriating because kombucha contains healthy acids that metabolize the alcohol that support healthy liver function, but it can contain more than what's allowed. And so the problem is that we have this, this number taken out of thin air that's not associated with science or human culture, and then you have this process that now has to readjust itself to fit into that box that doesn't really suit it either. But suffice to say, the companies came back after 2010. They had reformulated, and typically a blow like that would cripple an industry or would cause an industry to suffer a major setback. And while it was a financial blow to the companies that went through it, it hasn't set back kombucha at all. And I think that's just a testament to, again, this nutrition in a living form that our bodies just aren't getting a lot of, as well as that healthy liver support. Your liver, as you guys know, is your filter. It's where all the stuff gets filtered away through the liver before it hits your bloodstream, and it ends up getting sequestered and put into your fat cells. And over time, you can bioaccumulate toxic quantities of these things. Well, when you start consuming something that cleans the filter, imagine all this gunk starts to break up, it starts to get out of your body, and no wonder people feel good. And so that's why we've seen these reformulations, and that's why, as much as it's a fun experiment and it's a great idea to try to grow a SCOBY from a commercial brand, it's a wonderful indicator that what you're consuming is alive and vibrant. Just know that just like in the yogurt industry, there are some changes that have to be made to the process in order to meet the current regulations and standards.
Wow, that was a great little answer there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool that you said that too about growing your own SCOBY, because I know there's a lot of DIYers out there, and I'm glad you clarified that so they can kind of know there's a little bit of there's going to be some difference there. So that's pretty.
We always want to get a culture from a trusted source because they're going to reproduce. Whether that trusted source is your friend or someone It's just sometimes when you're getting these things off the internet and they're really cheap, like what kind of ingredients are they using? What kind of environment is it in?
Exactly.
So if you don't have a trusted friend you can get one from, going to a reputable source is the best way to do it. And hey, ladies, I had no idea bacteria farmer would end up on my resume at all when I was a kid. So it's definitely, I think, its own kind of niche job that's out there.
Yeah, and I always refer people to buy them probably from you, because if they don't literally know the person or haven't actually seen the conditions they're being grown in, I personally am not comfortable because I had to stop brewing kombucha in my own home for a while due to possible mold issues, and my son has a couple mold allergies, and so I just took the cautious route and took a break until I could investigate more. Quality of water is definitely going to be an issue. And I had someone years ago back, in my experimental days of kombucha, bring me a SCOBY. I'd never met her before, but she lived near me. She brought me a SCOBY, and it was the most scary-looking SCOBY I've ever seen. And I just kind of got a little skeeved, and I started to question. I was like, I wonder how she did this. And then I realized, well, gee, I don't even know anything about how she grew her kombucha. And now it could have been totally fine, but it just kind of made me start to question because I wasn't really thinking along those lines. So it's kind of a cool point to bring up. So people who are getting started are really thinking about quality, not just, I want to hurry up and do this. You do want to think about the source for sure. So, yeah, trusted source.
Well, and it's actually faster to get a culture from a trusted source because you can be brewing and have something to drink within 7 to 14 days. Whereas, if you grow your own, you're waiting for it to grow, and it's fun. It's a cool experiment.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy, you'll leave a bottle half empty. You'll come back and there's a SCOBY grown in it, and that's always a fun thing to discover. But, the reality is kombucha is incredibly safe to make at home. I have to say there's a lot of fear around kombucha, and even in the mainstream media, they'll say only buy a commercial brand, don't ever make it at home. And it's just kind of funny and hilarious to me because, of course, where did this tradition and culture start from? Well, it started in everyone's home. So to kind of take that fearful stance is just ridiculous, in my opinion, because here's the thing, the low pH of kombucha plus the healthy organic acid profile in numerous research studies has been shown to kill pathogens on contact, E. coli, salmonella, listeria, all these different things that we're normally creeped out about. It does a really great job at out-competing them, breaking their cell membranes, and making it so that they can't reproduce. So it's an incredibly safe product to make at home. And just like any other food, if it's contaminated at all, you're going to have the visual signals. How do we know that bread or cheese isn't acceptable to eat anymore? Well, there's mold growing on it. The same is true of kombucha. If there's mold growing on it, then it's something you just want to toss, and you don't even want to save that SCOBY, because once the mold spores, even if the mother, is on the bottom or floating somewhere else in the vessel, as soon as there's mold in that kombucha, just everything is contaminated. Just throw it away.
Yeah, I had that happen. Yep.
How about flavors? What are your favorite flavors of kombucha? You make it at home? Do you use herbs or fruit?
I usually use fruit in mine. I mean, anything fruity I really like. Pineapple is always good. I made a cherry lime one time that was really good with some fresh cherries and some lime juice. That was super tasty. The ginger ones, I started experimenting with some ginger, and I really liked the flavor of the ginger in the kombucha.
Yeah.
Fresh ginger and humans have a happy relationship. Ginger beer was the most popular beverage before Prohibition, and that's likely where ginger ale, the soda, came from, was just everyone loves ginger.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with ginger. I think ginger seems to bring my fermented drinks to a better fizz. I don't know if that's legit or if it's just me, but that's what I've noticed.
Well, I think the nutrients in the ginger really fortify the yeast, so in terms of getting that fizz in your secondary ferment, and that's really where the fizz is built. You'll get some effervescence in your primary, and you can see sometimes the bubbles will hover right below the surface after the SCOBY's grown across. But you're typically not going to get a lot of carbonation, per se, from a plain kombucha. It's when we put it in the bottle. Now it's in an anaerobic environment, and also we're capturing the CO2. Remember when you used to drink soda and you leave the top off the 2-liter and it go flat? That's because CO2 is a gas, and it'll dissipate unless we keep it in a tightly controlled environment. And so what we want to do is we want to put a little bit of nutrition in that bottle for the yeast so that they can do that secondary fermentation process and build more carbonation. And so ginger, fruit, anything like that is going to be great, but, more is not better. Less is better with kombucha. Otherwise, you end up with a spray of fruit pieces all over your ceiling. Or, we've seen the stories of people having to clean everything as a result of maybe over sugarifying their bottles, or there's different techniques for trying to capture the overflow. But, you can get super creative. In the book, we've got 260 flavoring inspirations. We also have recipes for making coffee kombucha. Kombucha is what we call it. So you don't even necessarily have to use tea in the primary fermentation, but of course you always want to be using one of your extra SCOBYs from your SCOBY hotel when you do those types of experiments. But, it's really exciting to see, even in the bottled industry, you've got people making yerba mate kombuchas, hibiscus kombuchas, coffee kombuchas. So I think we're tip of the iceberg in terms of creativity with this product. And then styles of brewing, how do you guys brew? Do you do batch brew? Do you do continuous?
I haven't done continuous. I've only done batch.
I've done both. I'm not brewing right now. I started out with batch and then did continuous as well, and then did batch again. It kind of just depended on where I was at, because sometimes I'll take time off and have breaks where I don't do any fermenting for a long time. And I think I have a very special place in my heart for the batch brewing, because that's what I first learned. So I've alternated and done both. And I can definitely see the benefits of doing the continuous brewing, especially for families who are drinking a lot or maybe have a really big family or whatever. The continuous brewing was pretty awesome for that.
Yeah. And for folks who drink a lot of it, or who just want ease of use, because even if you decide to take a break with the continuous, it acts like the SCOBY hotel. So you can take that break, and as long as there's enough liquid in there, you can just come back, drain out some of the sour stuff. Now you've got kombucha vinegar for your salad dressings, your marinades, your hair tonics, your facial toners, however you want to use it. It's even great drain cleaner, so you can dump it down the drain. But you top that off with your sweet tea and your back to your kombucha in just a couple of days as opposed to waiting for that whole batch cycle again. But I totally hear you in terms of, really loving the process you start with. But, everyone finds their little kombucha-cha. They figure out their little dance, the rhythm of how it works. And there is an ebb and flow, like you're saying. Sometimes you'll be brewing and sometimes you'll take a break and then you'll come back to it. And that's really natural and normal. I think people are really hard on themselves when they stop doing something. They're like, oh, I'm so guilty. Oh, I should still be doing this. It's like, well, sometimes life throws different things at you. And just rolling with that flow is usually better than beating yourself up for not doing it right or whatever that message is in your head.
Amen, girl.
Absolutely. Yep. We all go through different cycles, different seasons, and not everything is going to fit in all the time. So,
right.
Definitely something to
And you don't have to make everything all the time. I'm so lucky I get fantastic sauerkraut, even my Trader Joe's, I get fantastic fermented food that's not too expensive. And I always, whenever I travel, it's the first thing I do is like, where's the sauerkraut? Where's the kvass? I'm like hunting down all of the fermented foods. And I'm so grateful that I can go and buy them because, it's hard to bring your kraut with you on the plane and stuff like that. So it's, you have to have a whole other suitcase just for your food. Right.
Yeah, I love that. And I do cycle through my ferments, and so it's kind of cool that you brought that up. And I guess the main reason for me not doing batches yet, continuous, is I just don't have a system. And my boys, I've promised them I was going to get one of those big old 5-gallon barrel thingies one of these days. So it's on the list.
Well, you know where to get one whenever you need one.
I do.
Let me know. And that's what's great, I think, is we make it super easy. Absolutely, for the DIYers, you can go and you can hunt and peck and find all the this, that, or the other. But, what's really nice about our packages is everything is there for you. You don't have to worry, did I forget the supply or not? Plus, we fortify you with tons of information and support.
It's all there.
Some places, like, you might buy something on Amazon and then you've got a question. Are they even going to reply to your questions? Are they even going to know how to guide you through the process? They're not if they're just, selling you a vessel and they don't do any kombucha. So we have videos, we have email support, our website, our blog, our book. We really believe in empowerment through education. And there's a lot of value in learning these skills that haven't been taught to us by our grandparents or, that we've lost this kind of generational connection to. And it's so vital that there's people like you guys and like us who are out there just educating and helping people feel confident in these skills again.
Yeah. When I started with kombucha, there was no Kombucha Kamp, so I had to kind of hodgepodge it, and I was teaching people how to hodgepodge it. And then when Kombucha Kamp came along, I'm like, yes, this is awesome. And, of course, you've developed over time, and you have more and more products, and you have, these you have it all. Like, it's all there. So, there's no guessing. Anytime I've ever bought anything, there's, like, extra recipes and a little bonus little thing to try and, information. And so it's just really cool. And I love buying, from small businesses, and there's just the obvious passion there and the support. And so it's been really great. So I love Kombucha Kamp. I think it's awesome. I hope you keep developing and coming up with cool stuff for people because it's a lot of fun when you get into it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, we're total fermentation nerds.
You are my go-to resource for anything kombucha. And, I get questions on my site a lot of the times, and I have no idea how to answer them. So I always send them to you. You can answer pretty much anything.
Well, and we answer every single email, whether you're a customer or not, because, again, we've always been an education-forward company. And for us, it's not about trying to sell you something that you don't need. We really, we give you the information so you can make an informed decision. And that's trust your gut in action as well. We're not trying to buy this, your life will change forever. It's like enough. We get enough of that hype and BS on too many products. It's nice to just have a place you can show up and ask questions and get information and support. And, no question is too small or too simple, but hopefully you'll tool around our website. We've got a little search bar there. It makes it nice and easy to find stuff. And, who knows what's going to be the future of this stuff? I mean, you've got NASA shooting kombucha scobies into space with astronauts, hoping maybe this can be a way to create, materials and polymers in space without need to carrying pounds and pounds of product. We have in South America, they were developing scobies or bacterial cellulose into living bandages, for folks who have large open wounds that need frequent dressing. Having something that allows oxygen to get in but has that low pH and prevents other harmful microorganisms from getting in can be a huge boon, can help speed the healing process. We've got people developing fabrics and creating vegan leather substitutes out of them, and they can also be given to animals. Love kombucha, and they eat scobies instinctually. Like you throw one out into the chickens, and they're like fighting over who gets to eat the SCOBY. It's really tremendous to just see them. Again, they have no knowledge or information as to why this is good for them. They're just doing it because they know it is.
Wow, that's hilarious. I like that you brought up the bandages because I have a little story. So I used to have really bad eczema, like horrible, like I wanted to cut off my hand. And one of the only things that gave me actual relief was if I put an extra SCOBY on my hand or maybe had some extra kombucha I could put my hand in, but the SCOBY worked better. And I never understood why, but man, did my hand feel so good when I put that SCOBY on it. Isn't that crazy?
And in the book, it is crazy, but it's true. It actually helps to soothe burns. If I ever burn myself accidentally, I quickly get my hands in some kombucha. It helps to minimize the sting. It makes a great sunburn if you spray it on your skin. And then I've had so many people talk about using it as bandages, or someone's finger was almost cut all the way through and they wrapped it in a SCOBY and took it to the hospital, and it was,
wow.
They still needed stitches and all that. I'm not saying it healed it instantly, but it also prevented it from being worse than it could have been. And, my story with that is I tried to use it when I got poison oak, and I have to say it didn't help get rid of the poison oak. It was a miserable time. But what happened a few years later is, I love working with my hands with the SCOBYs. People will use tongs or this or that, but I just go for it. I put my hands in there. And I noticed that I was getting poison oak on my fingers even though I hadn't been hiking. I'm like, what is this? This is so weird. I mean, it wasn't a full-blown attack. And then it faded away. And then the next week I'm working with my kombucha again, and then it came out again. And what I realized was that the kombucha was pulling the toxins out through my skin. And, my fantasy someday is to have a spa where you can go and just lay in a giant tub of SCOBYs or liquid. I would do it in my own tub, but I'm afraid it would clog the drain. But, it does also help in that topical level. And we've had many people with eczema say that it helps to reduce the inflammation. It helps it to go away. Someone on our site said they had a mole or something, and it helped it fall off. So there are certainly a lot of anecdotal information about people using it topically to great benefit.
Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. I like the idea of using it for sunburn. I think I'm going to have to keep that in mind. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Wow, awesome. Well, let's talk about your book really quick. I think we talked about everything else that we were planning on, and you have this awesome book. And I know we're all inundated with amazing cookbooks out there, but this book is super cool if you really want to become a crafty kombucha brewer. This is definitely a great book to get. It's literally got absolutely everything you ever want to know about kombucha. Gorgeous pictures, some great quotes, so many ideas. The whole 9 yards is in here. Some really cool flavors, even smoothies and cocktails, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't see the cocktail section. That looks fun.
I remember seeing, wasn't there a kombucha sauerkraut in there, if I remember correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some unique uses that I would have never even dreamed of. So, yeah, it's really, really a fun book.
Very fun.
Kombucha condiments. And then I think what kind of sets our book apart, because, there have been some recent books come out that, have some good how-to information, some great recipes and flavorings and ideas like that. But what's different about our book is that we really delve into the history and then also the health benefits. There's an appendix in the back where we talk about specific health ailments that kombucha has anecdotally helped, but every single one of those we tie to a research paper. So there's a huge knock on kombucha that there's no research, it's not tested, there's no proven benefits.
Right.
And, again, this always makes me laugh, hello, the whole reason that this stuff exists anecdotally is because people experience it. So clearly it's creating some kind of benefit. Just because, quote-unquote, scientific method hasn't figured out a way to quantify it doesn't mean it isn't happening. And, in fact, everything in science is, that people study through science is because it already exists. I mean, the phenomena of gravity already exists, whether an apple hit Newton on the head or not. And it's by using the scientific method that we try to understand the underlying mechanism, but it doesn't disqualify the fact that it already is. And so, but because we know people are very focused on that, and so we put that information in there, and I think it helps people to understand, okay, why does this help me feel better? So it's really great to have that section in there. And of course, even if you never decide to make your own kombucha, just the little word nerds and the little history tidbits and even just reading the book, I think is fun and entertaining. And of course, if you're making kombucha at all, even if you feel like you're an old hand, you've been doing it for a long time, this book, I think, will have some great tips from our experience over 10 years of making kombucha.
Oh, totally.
That will make it a lot easier.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been doing this since 2000. I don't even remember what year. It's been a while. It's been not a decade, not as much as you, but I was like, holy crap, I'm looking through this thing like, geez Louise, if all I wanted to do was think about kombucha, I'd just take this book and float on a creek, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think it's well done. So anyway, if that sounds intriguing to y'all, definitely check it out. It's well done.
Well, it's like a resource book. It's one that you're going to come back to again and again. And I even remember when I was first getting into kombucha, reading like Gunter Frank's book, The German Guide. And I would read something, and then I'd go and I'd do my kombucha, and I'd come back and I'd read it again, and I'd be like, oh, that's what he's talking about now that I've experienced the process. And so it's really this interactive, dynamic learning process. It's not just you read the book and now you know everything.
Right.
You read the book, you go and you come back and you read again, and it just like, those layers of an onion, it just kind of all starts to make sense in a different way.
Absolutely. That's how it is with any health-related practice or topic. So very cool. Well, this has been a total blast chatting with you, and I really do hope to get to meet up again. And, we really appreciate you coming, sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. I learned a lot today, and I consider myself a relatively old hand at the kombucha thing. So, this is great.
Totally.
Thanks so much for having me, and really, really love the work you ladies are doing. And, we grow together, and the only way we do that is by empowering each other and supporting our communities, whether they're online or in our backyards. And, it's hard to do that when your health is compromised. And so it really is vital that we kind of reclaim our health in our own individual ways. And everyone's process is different. So the more information, the more people are able to really just return to that innate ability to understand their own physiology. So thanks so much for what you guys do, and I really appreciate being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Vibrant Health Podcast. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to the information we're sharing. If this information resonated with you and you know others who could benefit from it, we would love it if you'd share it with them. We'd also be very appreciative if you could leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. If you're on our sites or YouTube listening to this, we'll have links down below where you can leave a review. If you're on your phone listening through the app, you can also leave a review directly through the app. It only takes about a minute, super fast, super easy, and your shares and reviews help us reach more people with our message of health and wellness, so we really, really appreciate your support. If you're looking for more information on health and wellness in general, both Lydia and I have a ton of information on our sites. You can find me over at jessicaespinoza.com, which is my main practice website and where I offer my 21-day sugar detox coaching, and in the future I'm going to be offering nutritional therapy coaching as well. You can also find me on deliciousobsessions.com, which is my main real food and natural living website. You can find Lydia over at divinehealthfromtheinsideout.com, where she offers nutritional therapy consultations and hair tissue mineral analysis services for those who are ready to take their health to the next level. Lastly, if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we would absolutely love to hear from you. We want these podcasts to be as informational and inspirational as possible, and we'd love to hear from you and understand exactly what you would like us to cover. You can email us or leave a comment below, or even give us a shout out on social media. We both look forward to serving you and inspiring you to live the healthiest, happiest lives possible. Thanks for listening.